Welcome to True Crime Bites, Death Row and Executions, where we honor lives lost and revisit the final chapters of those who crossed the line. In the final moments before the end, when the world fades and time runs out, what do you hold on to? For Clarence Lackey, David Spence, Billy Joe Woods, and Kenneth Gentry, their last meals and final words were more than routine. They were a glimpse into their souls. Join me as we step into those haunting final minutes, where regret, hope, and humanity collide in ways you won't forget. Big shout out to Robert Xs88 for suggesting the story on Clarence Lackey's last meal and final words. Appreciate you tuning in. Let's get into it. Clarence Lackey. Clarence Allen Lackey was a man with a past, and in the summer of 1977, that past came back with a vengeance. Only this time, it left behind a body. On July 31st, 23-year-old Diane Cump's day ended in horror. She was young, independent, and living on her own in Lubbock, Texas. But that night, someone broke into her apartment. Clarence Lackey didn't come to rob her. He came with darker intentions. He abducted her, forced her into his vehicle, and drove her out to a remote, dusty dirt road outside the city. There, far from help, Diane was sexually assaulted, beaten, and left to die. Her throat was slashed. Her body was found partially unclothed, discarded like an afterthought, surrounded by silence and dry earth. Diane wasn't some random victim. She had dreams, a career path, maybe even a family of her own, if life had gone differently. But all of that was taken in one night of cruelty. In the space of minutes, someone stole decades. Weddings, promotions, hugs from her parents, erased. The crime shocked the community, but it didn't take long for the trail to point back to one man. Police found blood and hair from Diane in Lackey's apartment, in his truck, and even on his boots. The forensic evidence was overwhelming, but what sealed it was a confession, not to police, but to someone close. Lackey's roommate, Carol Johnson, later testified that after hearing news reports about the murder investigation, he turned to her and said, "Baby, I've got to tell you something. I'm the one they're looking for." And he was. Lackey had just been released from prison 5 months earlier. His previous charge? Burglary with intent to sexually assault. He served 2 years of a 5-year sentence. And when he got out, he didn't stop. He escalated. The case went to trial in 1983. He was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death. Years of appeals followed, but the evidence never wavered. The confession, the blood, the pattern. He ate a last meal of steak, fries, and chocolate ice cream, and requested that 2 ministers be present. His last words, "I would like to thank my Lord Jesus Christ for keeping me strong all these years. I would also like to thank my mother for standing by me all these years. I would also like to thank my pen pals, Joe and Camille Tilling, and Joanne, for helping me stay strong all these years. I also thank my 2 lawyers, Rita and Brent, for fighting to keep me alive. I love you, Mom." David Spence. On the night of April 3rd, 1997, David Wayne Spence was led to the death chamber at the Huntsville unit in Texas. At 41 years old, Spence was about to pay the ultimate price for a crime that had haunted the city of Waco for nearly 15 years. Spence had been convicted of the brutal 1982 Lake Waco murders, a case that sent shockwaves through the community. 3 teenagers, 17-year-old Jill Montgomery, 17-year-old Raylene Rice, and 18-year-old Kenneth Franks, were found stabbed dozens of times near Spiegelville Park. 17 and 18, just on the edge of adulthood, they had plans, people who loved them, and futures waiting to be lived. All of it wiped away in one brutal act. Tortured, bound with shoelaces, gagged, and left to die. The sheer brutality of the crime left even hardened investigators shaken. Jill and Raylene had their entire futures ahead of them. Graduation, dreams, love, and life, stolen in the most violent way imaginable. Kenneth Franks, the only male among the victims, was discovered propped up against a tree, sunglasses placed eerily over his lifeless eyes. Their final moments were filled with pain, fear, and confusion. According to prosecutors, Spence had been hired in a murder-for-hire plot gone wrong. The intended target was believed to be someone else, an employee who looked like Jill. Instead, Jill, Raylene, and Kenneth crossed paths with evil and never made it out of that park. It's a theory that still raises questions. A mistaken identity, a paid hit, and 3 lives taken to cover the tracks. But the facts of what happened in that park remain chilling, no matter who was meant to die. The evidence that led to Spence's conviction was a mix of inmate testimonies, controversial bite mark analysis, and questionable confessions. Years later, many of those claims would begin to unravel. The bite marks couldn't be reliably linked. Witnesses recanted, saying they were fed information or offered deals. Even the man accused of orchestrating the plot, Munir Deeb, had his conviction overturned and walked free. Still, Spence's appeals failed. Whether David Wayne Spence was guilty or not remains debated to this day. What's not up for debate is the horrifying reality of what happened to 3 innocent teenagers on a summer night in 1982. Jill, Raylene, and Kenneth deserve so much more than to become names in a cold case file or evidence in a courtroom. Their families still carry that pain. Years of appeals brought no relief. The state stood firm. And as the hour came, David Spence was offered the same final dignity every death row inmate receives, a last meal, and one final chance to speak. David Spence's final meal consisted of fried chicken, French fries, tea, coffee, chocolate ice cream, and a Coca-Cola for his last meal. Asked if he had any last words, he replied, "First of all, I want you to understand, I speak the truth when I say I didn't kill your kids. Honestly, I have not killed anyone. I wish you could get the rage from your hearts and you could see the truth and get rid of the hatred. I love you all," and spoke the names of his children, Corey, Steve. This is very important. I love y'all, and I miss y'all. Okay, now I'm finished. And then it was over. Whatever the truth may be, this much is certain. 3 teenagers were robbed of their lives in the most violent way imaginable. That pain didn't end in 1982. It lingers in every question still unanswered. Billy Joe Woods. In the early hours of October 8, 1975, 62-year-old Mabel Ehat was alone in her Houston apartment. She was battling cancer, relied on a walker, and was just trying to get through the night. But someone else had other plans. She wasn't just a name in a case file. Mabel Ehat was a woman facing her final chapter with quiet strength, fighting cancer, holding on to what little independence she had. She deserved peace, not terror. Billy Joe Woods, 29, scaled a utility pole behind her building, forced open a window and climbed inside. What began as a burglary turned into something far more horrific. He sexually assaulted her, he beat her, and then he strangled her. As if that weren't enough, he crushed her skull with a cast-iron frying pan. There are crimes that shake you. This one felt like it was carved from cruelty itself. It wasn't just a burglary gone wrong. It was a complete disregard for human life. The violence was brutal, senseless, cruel. When police arrived, Woods hadn't even fled. He was still inside, caught red-handed, carrying Mabel's TV, her bracelet, and a bottle of her prescription morphine. He was arrested on the spot. At his trial in 1978, the jury found him guilty of capital murder. Prosecutors argued he was a danger to society. The court agreed. Billy Joe Woods was sentenced to death. He spent nearly 21 years on death row, one of Texas's longest-serving inmates at the time. He filed appeal after appeal, but none could erase the horror of what he'd done. While Texas did allow special last meals at the time, official records from the Woods case provide no specifics on what he requested or ate. He declined to make a last statement. No last words, no apology, just silence. Maybe that silence said more than anything he could have uttered. On April 14, 1997, at the Huntsville unit in Texas, Woods was executed by lethal injection. Kenneth Gentry. In September 1983, Kenneth Gentry, a prison escapee from the Texas Department of Corrections, picked up 23-year-old hitchhiker Jimmy Don Ham. Under the pretense of helping Ham hide, Gentry led him to a secluded park near Lake Louisville, where he fatally shot him 3 times. It's disturbing to think how a simple offer of help can lead to something so final. Jimmy Don Ham had no idea his trust would cost him his life. Gentry was arrested just days later. The key evidence included Ham's belongings found in Gentry's girlfriend's purse, which helped authorities tie Gentry to the crime. During his 1984 trial, Gentry confessed to the murder. It's one thing to commit a crime, it's another to admit to it and reveal that it was never random, that someone's life was taken, not out of panic, but out of planning. Testimonies from loved ones and his chilling admissions during questioning exposed a dark plan behind the killing. The jury sentenced him to death. 14 years passed between the murder and the execution. Years where the weight of a single decision hung in the air like smoke that never cleared. After spending years on Texas's death row, Kenneth Gentry was executed on April 16, 1997. For his last meal, Gentry requested butter beans, mashed potatoes, onions, tomatoes, biscuits, chocolate cake, and Dr. Pepper with ice. He also asked for a cigarette, but it was denied due to prison policy prohibiting tobacco. Gentry apologized to him and his family, saying, "I'm sorry for the suffering I put you through these past 14 years. I hope you can get some peace after this." Gentry fell still for some time after the chemicals were administered before saying, "Sweet Jesus, here I come, take me home, I am going your way." Last meals and final words offer a rare, human glimpse into the minds of those facing the ultimate sentence. Whether filled with regret, defiance, or faith, these moments remind us that behind every story is a complex, flawed person. If you found these stories compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next deep dive into the final moments that define a life.